So to make your own plaster head form, you're going to need a few things, including a plastic bucket, a container to hold water, some plaster, some gloves, a wig form head, and a small foam disc. Most of these you can pick up at Hobby Lobby, and we'll go into a little bit more detail here. So the plastic discs, you're just going to grab this at Hobby Lobby, along with your wig form head. They're fairly cheap. The wig form head was $5.49 and the bag of plaster was $7.99. So the reason to make a plaster head form, now you can use the wig form to make the mask that you've seen in my other videos, but the problem is sometimes it's not the right size. So here you see me measuring from the chin to the top of the head and around the temple and the neck. And when you measure yourself, you might find that this does not match your head size. So this is the reason that I suggest you make your own plaster head form, because you can make the head form to match your head size. So to start this project, you're going to take your disc and just start poking holes. This is going to let your plaster stick to your foam. And I do the same thing to the wig form head. When I was doing this, I kept thinking about the movie Basic Instinct. Sharon Stone with the ice pick, anyone? But anyway, just make holes. And once you get that done, just kind of brush off the little pieces of foam. And you're going to set these aside. And then we're going to start mixing up our plaster. So to mix your plaster, you want to use 6 cups of plaster to 2 cups of water. Now I kind of goofed here in that I'd only done 4 cups of plaster to the 2 cups of water. And you'll see me fix this here in just a second. So you're going to want to get your gloves here in just a second. So here you see me adding the water. And once you get your gloves on, you're going to mix this plaster to a fairly smooth consistency. You just want to work it to try and get out all of the lumps. So again, I'd kind of goofed up on my formula, so I had to add a little more plaster. So what you want to do here at first is put some on the base and then on the bottom of your wig form head, and just put those two together. And then you're just going to start adding your plaster onto your wig form head. Now your plaster will dry in about 10 to 15 minutes, so you want to work fairly consistently. Don't rush, but you will notice that your plaster will start to thicken up. So all you're going to do is put on a fairly smooth coat at this point. Now it can be a little rough, you might have some finger streaks, but you just want to make sure that you're basically, with this first coat, covering everything. Now the smoother you can get it, the more it'll help on your next few coats. especially at the end when you want to smooth it out. So again, just make sure you're covering everything. And what we're trying to do with each layer is build up the dimensions of the wig form head to match your own. So here I've got everything covered, and I'm just taking it off my black plastic garbage bag at this point, just so you guys can see it. Alexa, set a 30-minute timer.
30 minutes, starting now.
So here you can see how it looks after your first coat. And again, it'll be a little streaky, and this is okay. It's just going to help your other coats of plaster to stick. But the smoother, you don't want big chunks. The smoother you can get it, it'll help you in the long run. So here's a quick tip. So in between each batch of your plaster, you want to try and clean out your bucket. This is just a quick way. Once your plaster's pretty hard, after about 15 to 20 minutes, you can just kind of smack your bucket a little bit and dump out your plaster. Quick and easy tip. So, before I put on the second coat, I'm trying to see how the measurements look. So each layer of plaster will build up
so it's been about
roughly
30 minutes.
about a ½ inch, if not a little bit more. So again, on your second coat of plaster, and this time I actually measured correctly, 6 cups of plaster to 2 cups of water. And again, just mix it up to where it's fairly smooth. And we're just going to repeat the process. Now I will say on this second coat, what you're trying to do is kind of fill in the areas under the nose and behind the ears. You really want to start thinking about, if I put on a foam layer, am I going to be able to pull off this foam mask easily enough? Or is it going to catch on the ears or the nose? So that's the reason I suggest you try to fill in behind the ears just a little bit and under the nose. And think about your head size, because you've done your measurements, so you really want to think, what areas do I need to build up? For my head size, I know I needed to build up the back of the head just a little bit, under the chin, and kind of around the temples. Now I'm not saying put it on just handfuls. Each layer is going to build this up. So there you can see it. I've got the second coat on. So we're going to move on to the third coat. And again, you want to get the plaster out of your bucket in between. So again, the same formula, 6 cups of plaster to 2 cups of water. And again, just mix it up thoroughly, and then just start adding on your final coat. Now this coat, I will suggest you want to try and make it as smooth as you can. It's not going to be perfect, but the smoother you get it, the less sanding you will have to do, especially if you're going to do latex masks. Now, if you're not going to be doing latex masks, you can have it fairly rough. And again, I'm just thinking about, if I make a foam mask, is this going to come off easily? and what areas do I need to build up. So again, I'm trying to smooth out the areas around the chin, the nose, the eyes, and behind the ears. And again, you want to work fairly consistently because your plaster will harden after about 10 minutes. So here, I'm pretty happy with the shape and how smooth it came out. And here, you can kind of see how mine looks. But see how I filled in kind of behind the ears and under the nose? This is just going to allow me to take the foam masks off much easier. So at this point, I'm going to check my measurements just to see how close I am. So the foam head is pretty smooth and it looks fairly good. But again, I want to double check my measurements just to see if I need to add another coat of plaster. So again, you're going to check it from the chin to the top of your head, around the temple. Mine came out exactly to my own head measurements. This was after 3 coats of plaster. Now this next step is totally up to you. If you're just going to do foam masks or even cosplay, you don't need to do this step. But you might want to smooth it out if you're going to do latex. So a wire brush and just a rough tooth file. And don't go hard here. Just take your time and go lightly. And all you're trying to do is just kind of smooth out some of the rough areas. You don't want to gouge your plaster. So again, go very lightly with your file. And you use your wire brush just to clean out your file because the plaster will gum it up pretty quick. So here, I just took an old Jason mask I had and just kind of marked out the eye areas. And I'm going to use my Dremel just to kind of deepen those sockets a little bit. Now the reason I do this is just, it's easier for me when I do cosplay and that I don't have to mark my eyes each time. And there you have it. So you can kind of see the multiple uses of this. Not only can you make the foam mask that you've seen me do in the other videos, but here's some examples of some of the cosplays that I've done. Sub-Zero, Deathstroke, and this plaster form head just gives you the option to work a lot more sturdily. So I hope you guys liked this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, like, share, and comment.